confused about probiotics? Maybe you've even stopped by the local health food store or pharmacy at the advice of a physician or a friend to look at picking up some probiotics for your own use, and you've been confused by the assortment that's available. I'm Tracy Long, a health and nutrition expert from Big Picture Health. I'm here to offer you a 3-part series on fermenting vegetables inspired by Dr. Betty Bischoff from Tulsa, Oklahoma, a functional medicine practitioner at Your Best Life. Part 1 of this series will introduce you to fermentation and answer some commonly asked questions. Part 2 will be a live demonstration of how to dive right in your own kitchen and get started making your own fermented vegetables. And part 3 is some bonus material where I'll be offering you some troubleshooting tips and some resources. So let's start right now with part 1, talking about fermented vegetables. Many times we're reaching for probiotic pills, but science is telling us now that fermented vegetables can contain 10 to 40 times more probiotics in a live culture form than what we can get in a pill. And besides that, contain other important essential nutrients that are really good for us. This does not mean that your healthcare provider is out of line if they send you to the store to buy a specific probiotic to treat a specific medical condition, but many of us could benefit from creating our own fermented products in our own home. So before we get into the live demonstration, I'd like to answer some commonly asked questions about fermenting products. Many people ask me, why can't I just buy some sauerkraut? And yes, you can go to the store and buy sauerkraut. If you buy the type that's in the inside aisles of your local grocery store that's shelf stable, at one time it was a live active culture that was fermented, but the heat canning process to make that product shelf stable killed the live culture. So if you want to buy your sauerkraut, look for the outside perimeter of your grocery store in the cold section of the store and buy a fermented product. Many local producers are fermenting vegetables and providing them for you in the cold section that are very beneficial. You can save some money though, and maybe even inspire some new culinary skills for you and your family by trying fermenting in your own home. You may be wondering, why do I even need probiotics? So I have a little poster for you. I'd like to point out some points about why you might even need them. Looking first at poor diversity. Science is showing that we have relatively low diversity in the types of microbes that we have inside of our bodies. We have about 3 to 5 pounds of microbes that naturally live in our GI tract. And we think that the diversity is poor, one, because of an overuse of antibiotics, the use of chlorinated water, so our tap water might actually damage some of those little tiny microorganisms that live in our gut. The toxic compounds in our environment, such as pesticide residues that might be on some of our conventionally produced food, actually might attack and kill some of the natural growing organisms in our gut. And something called the hygiene hypothesis, that really means we're kind of too clean. We don't get a lot of great exposure to dirt, and we have an overuse of antibiotic hand sanitizers. And then that all contributes to this low diversity. A second reason that you might need probiotics or fermented food is to boost your immune system. About 70% of our immune system is located in the gastrointestinal tract. And if we have good variety of microbes, they compete with the bad ones. They can also improve the health of our gut lining by boosting the function of our immune system if the good guys outweigh the bad guys. So you might be wondering, what exactly is fermentation? Fermentation, think of it as a transformation. We could take this head of cabbage and leave it sitting out on our countertop or in a cupboard in our pantry for a couple of weeks and check in on it later and find a moldy, slimy mess. Because this product actually has its own natural covering of microorganisms that we can't even see. And if given the right conditions, like a warm environment and exposure to air, those microbes will grow out of hand and actually spoil or rot this cabbage. So we can use fermentation to manipulate the environment of this food to encourage food preservation. So we can refrigerate the cabbage to lengthen its life, or we can ferment it to lengthen its life and take advantage of the nutrition from the bacteria over time. When we ferment, we discourage the growth of negative microorganisms and encourage the growth of positive and good microorganisms. So really there's two primary reasons to ferment food. So I'll show them to you. I've got them listed here. The first one is for food preservation, what we just talked about. We can make the food last a long time. And the second one is we can actually improve the nutrition of the food that we ferment. Fermenting is a way to pre-digest some of the food. So the microbes actually break the food down for us. Something to think about the process of what your teeth do. Well, the microorganisms take care of some of that. They increase the availability of nutrients. There's a lot of fiber in this cabbage, and if the fermenting process starts that pre-digestion and can break down some of the fiber, we're also releasing the hold that that fiber might have on some of our micronutrients, especially minerals. Fermenting can generate additional nutrients. For example, we can actually make B vitamins in the fermentation process so we can get more out of our food that's been fermented. There's more nutrition in fermented food than there is in a capsule or a pill, such as phytonutrients and fiber and many other compounds that we are just beginning to explore in science. Fermented foods also contain something called prebiotics, or those are food for the healthy microbes that are within our gut right now. And the final point is that they offer flavor in our diet. So you can think about fermented foods as providing crunch and sour and tangy. And if you're frightened or if your palate isn't really acclimated to those types of foods, we know that if you're willing to try a small amount of a new food up to 14 times, you can gradually actually change your taste, sensation, and acclimate and grow to like a food. And maybe that happened to you if you think back to trying to like beer or a product like coffee, that over time, or maybe with a little added sweetener, you learn to like it, and now it's something that you actually crave and desire. That can happen with fermented food. I have also been asked about the fear that some people have that making them sick or themselves sick, or even poisoning loved ones with fermented vegetables. I would like you to rest assured that this is very unlikely to happen, because people have been fermenting vegetables for a really long time. The process, if you follow the simple instructions that you're going to see in part 2 of this video series too, will really strictly limit the likelihood of you making anyone sick. So I'd like you to rest assured and stay tuned for part 2 to find out how you can safely make fermented vegetables. So how hard is it to get started? Really, all you need is some cabbage and some salt. That's all you need. So let's move on to part 2 and dive into the live demonstration on how to make this fermented vegetable product.